From the outside, the Carters looked like the kind of family you'd see on a Christmas card. Smiling parents, 2 daughters with golden hair, and a house tucked in a quiet suburb of Chicago that always smelled like cinnamon and fresh laundry. But trust me, perfection has a price. And in the Carter house, that price was me. I'm Samantha Carter, the daughter people forget in photos. The one who gets straight A's but no praise. The one who sits through family dinners pretending not to notice who gets second helpings of love, of attention, of everything. This is the story of how I became invisible in my own home and what happened when I decided I wouldn't stay that way. When I was 8, I stopped asking for the red balloon. That might sound strange, but if you've ever had a sibling like Olivia, you'd get it. We were at the county fair. My sister wanted the red balloon, so of course she got it. I pointed to the blue one, less bold, quieter like me, but the vendor only had one red left, and Mom said, "Let's not make a fuss." That was the first time I realized. Fuss beats fairness. Olivia was 2 years younger than me, but lived like she was born to be adored. Her hair curled naturally, her laugh could charm anyone within 100 yards, and somehow, no matter what she did, it was always more, bigger, brighter, better. I wasn't jealous at first. I didn't have time for that. I was the one who stayed up late studying for spelling bees no one came to. I brought home report cards with straight A's and got a distracted, "Good job, honey," while Olivia showed up with a cheer trophy and had the whole family out for ice cream that night. "You're just more self-sufficient," Mom would say whenever I asked why Olivia got a brand new car for her 17th birthday while I biked to school through sleet and snow. Self-sufficient. I learned early what that word really meant. It meant invisible. It meant don't ask, don't need, don't expect. Every inch of our house told the same story. Family portraits had me stiff and smiling in the corner while Olivia stood in the center, front and beaming. On Christmas morning, her gifts were wrapped in shiny paper with satin bows. Mine looked like someone remembered them on the way home from work. They probably had, but I didn't say anything. I just kept being the good kid. I thought, maybe if I was perfect enough, someone would notice. They didn't. High school made it worse. Olivia was a cheerleader, prom queen, and the kind of girl who made teachers smile when she walked into a room. Meanwhile, I was the tutor in the back of the library, editing other people's essays and erasing my own voice. I got into honors classes, top of my year, but no one clapped. Olivia posted a picture in her new dress and got 500 likes in an hour. At home, dinner conversations were always about her. Did you see Olivia's performance? Her coach says she might go to state. That boy from the game asked for her number. And me? I passed the SAT with a near-perfect score and heard, "That's great, honey. Can you help your sister with math later?" So I did, because that's what I'd always done. Helped, stayed quiet, kept being useful. Until the night I couldn't. It was the spring before graduation. I had been accepted into 3 Ivy League schools. The letter from Princeton came in a heavy envelope, thick with opportunity. I opened it in the kitchen, hands shaking, heart pounding, waiting, hoping for a moment that would finally be mine. "Mom, Dad, I called. I got in." They both looked up from the couch where they were watching Olivia's latest TikTok routine on the TV. Mom clapped. Dad smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," he said, eyes flicking back to the screen. "We're so proud of you. Can you grab us some popcorn?" Popcorn. I stood there, acceptance letter in hand, realizing nothing I ever did would be enough. That night, I packed a bag. Not because I was running away. No, I wasn't that dramatic. But I went to the lake, alone. Sat on the dock with my feet dangling over the edge and the envelope beside me, and I cried. Not because I wasn't loved. I think, in their way, they did love me. But love, when it's lopsided, feels a lot like being forgotten. In the dark, I whispered to myself the one thing I had never dared say out loud. I deserve more. And something changed. I didn't confront them the next day, or the next week. I didn't throw a tantrum or demand equality. That wasn't me. What I did was leave. I chose Princeton. I left the house with my head high and my dreams in a suitcase. I didn't ask them to drive me. I didn't wait for Olivia to post a goodbye selfie. I left because I had finally figured something out. Being invisible in the Carter house didn't mean I was invisible everywhere. They raised a girl who could stand on her own. They just didn't expect her to walk away. They say every family has secrets. The Carters' secret wasn't scandal or crime. It was something quieter, colder. Sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't what they do to you. It's what they don't do, like seeing you, hearing you. If you've ever felt like the background character in your own life, maybe you'll understand why I had to leave. And trust me, this story, it's just getting started. You know those moments that divide your life into before and after? For me, it was a Wednesday night dinner. Meatloaf, green beans, and betrayal served on ceramic plates. We had all just gotten our acceptance letters to Ashwood University. Olivia was going for communications naturally. She was made for the spotlight. I had been accepted into their elite engineering program, something only a handful of applicants even got close to. It should have been a moment of celebration, something we'd remember for years, but instead, my dad cleared his throat halfway through dinner and said, "We've looked at the finances. We can only afford to send one of you without taking on debt." Silence. A beat. Then he added, almost like it was obvious, "Olivia's program fits better with what we can support right now." That was it. No follow-up, no apology, no logic that made even the slightest bit of sense. I stared at them, Mom nodding, Olivia grinning like it was her birthday. My GPA was higher. I had 3 National Robotics Awards and a recommendation letter from a NASA engineer I met at a summer camp I paid for myself. Olivia's last big academic achievement was a group project on Instagram marketing, but none of that mattered. I didn't throw a fit. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the taste of meatloaf turning to ash in my mouth. I excused myself and went upstairs. My old twin bed creaked under me as I sat in the dark, my fingers gripping the edge of the Princeton letter I never showed them. Because what was the point? That night, something inside me snapped. Not the kind of snap that makes you fall apart, but the kind that hardens you, like glass becoming stone. I didn't ask why. I didn't try to argue. I just moved. I spent the next few weeks hunting down every scholarship that didn't require an essay about why I loved volleyball or marketing. I filled out FAFSA forms until my eyes blurred. I applied for work-study jobs, off-campus jobs, remote jobs, anything that would get me there. I reached out to the engineering department at Ashwood and secured a need-based grant with help from a professor who said my application essay was the most focused he'd seen in 5 years. I didn't tell anyone. I just did it. Meanwhile, the Carter house buzzed with Olivia's preparations. There was a going-away brunch with pastel balloons and custom cupcakes. She got a new wardrobe, a MacBook, and a dorm room consultation from some interior design TikToker. They even surprised her with a car. A car. I still had my rusted-out Civic with the broken AC and a missing hubcap. On move-in day, Olivia left first. Dad drove, Mom cried, and Instagram was flooded with photos of our baby girl's next chapter. There was a string of comments from distant relatives and high school friends saying how proud they were. No one posted about me. I moved into my dorm 2 days later, alone. My roommate hadn't arrived yet. I dragged 2 suitcases up the stairs of a building that smelled like old books and bleach. One of the handles snapped halfway through. There was no ribbon cutting, no cheering. Just me, sweating through my t-shirt, setting up my side of the room with secondhand sheets and a $12 lamp from Goodwill. And yet, I was proud, because every single step I took was mine. No one handed it to me. No one cleared the path. I carved it out with calloused hands and a fire in my gut that no one could put out. Not even my own family. I found a job working nights at a tech lab, testing circuit boards and organizing equipment. I tutored freshman calculus on weekends. I lived on black coffee and dollar ramen, but I was in. I belonged there more than anyone knew. I passed Olivia in the quad once during the first month. She was with a group of girls, laughing, sunglasses perched on her head, iced latte in hand. She saw me. Her smile faded a little. She didn't wave. Neither did I. We lived in the same universe, but on different planets now. And I liked it that way, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their attention. I wasn't begging to be seen. I was seen by the professors who praised my designs, by classmates who asked for my help, by a world that didn't care about family favorites or picture-perfect smiles. All it saw was what I could do, and I could do everything. You don't really know who you are until you're sitting on the floor of a cramped basement, eating instant oatmeal with a screwdriver in your pocket and a textbook in your lap. That was me, 19, broke, and absolutely determined. College wasn't what most people think it is. There were no leafy walks between classes, no midnight pizza parties. My reality was a tech support call center where I worked 25 to 30 hours a week, talking strangers through resetting passwords while keeping one eye on my laptop, cramming for thermodynamics exams. I shared a windowless basement apartment with 3 other girls I barely knew. One of them snored like a freight train. Another borrowed my shampoo like it was a communal donation. Sometimes I skipped meals. Not for a diet, not for time, just so I could afford the next required textbook or refill my bus card. Hunger became a background noise I learned to ignore. But I was doing it. Barely, but still. My grades were strong. I aced my calculus and mechanical design courses, built projects that turned heads, and somehow scored a highly competitive internship at a local aerospace firm during my second year. I remember the look the manager gave me when I showed up for the interview with thrift store heels and a binder full of circuit diagrams. "You built this?" he asked, flipping through my blueprints. "Every line," I said, and I meant it. The job changed everything. It wasn't glamorous. I ran simulations, soldered parts, even restocked lab supplies. But it was real. It was mine. For the first time, I felt like I was doing more than surviving. I was building something, brick by brick, wire by wire. Meanwhile, Olivia was unspooling like a ball of yarn. She had changed majors twice. First from communications to psychology, then from psychology to general studies. I heard from a mutual friend that she missed classes constantly and was on thin ice with the university. But we weren't talking. Not really. If we passed each other on campus, we'd give a quick wave and keep walking. Part of me didn't care. After everything, I told myself I didn't owe her anything. Not my time, not my sympathy. She had been handed a golden ticket while I clawed my way through every day. So, if she was struggling now, maybe it was her turn. But the universe has a funny way of testing how cold you've really become. It was a Thursday night when she called. I was at my desk, piecing together a model for a propulsion lab, surrounded by paper scraps and open coding windows. My phone buzzed and I saw her name. I almost let it ring out, but something in me picked up. "Sam?" Her voice was small, breathless. "What's wrong?" I said, immediately on edge. I'm on academic probation," she said, and then came the part that cracked me wide open. "I'm failing. I need help." There was silence on my end. Not because I didn't have 1,000 things to say, but because I had to sort through which ones mattered. I wanted to scream, "Now you care? Now you remember I exist?" But instead I asked, "What do you need help with?" She burst into tears, and I let her cry. She came over that weekend. For someone who had always been perfectly put together, Olivia looked tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her nails chipped. She brought a backpack and 2 Red Bulls. "I didn't know what else to bring," she said. I set up 2 chairs at the folding table in the kitchen. She sat. I sat. And for the first time in years, we were eye to eye. Not as rivals or strangers, but as 2 very tired young women trying to make sense of their own messes. She opened her laptop and showed me the course, Introduction to Statistics. She was drowning in formulas and deadlines. Her last exam score was a 47. I sighed. Okay, let's start with the basics. That night turned into a week. 1 session became 5. I created flashcards, walked her through datasets, and explained standard deviation using a bowl of cereal and 3 spoons. It wasn't just tutoring, it was rebuilding. Her confidence, her focus, maybe even our connection. And somewhere in those hours, the anger I'd held onto started to melt. "I was always jealous of you," she said once, eyes on her notes. "You never needed anyone. I always needed everything." I didn't know what to say. That sentence echoed louder than I wanted it to. Eventually, Olivia passed her final. Barely, but she passed. She sent me a photo of the grade with 12 exclamation points. And I smiled. I didn't help her because she deserved it. I helped her because I did. I needed to know that I was more than the resentment I'd carried, that I could choose grace, not because they gave it to me, but because I owned it. Now I don't pretend we became best friends after that. We still lived separate lives. But there was a shift. She started checking in on me. We had coffee a few times, even studied together once when she took an elective in media engineering. She never apologized for the past, not with words, but sometimes it's the small things. The way she listened more closely, how she didn't interrupt, how she introduced me as my sister, Sam. She's a genius. I didn't need their validation anymore. Not from her, not from my parents. I had proven everything I needed to prove to myself. And sometimes that's enough. It's strange how the smallest routines can rebuild something you thought was broken beyond repair. For weeks, Olivia and I met up late in the library or over greasy takeout at my kitchen table. I helped her draft essays, explained basic concepts she should have learned semesters ago, and showed her how to actually use a planner. I didn't sugarcoat anything. She didn't ask me to. But slowly, between half-understood lectures and practice quizzes, something shifted. One night, around 2 a.m., buried under caffeine and printer paper, Olivia looked at me and said quietly, "You know, I always thought you didn't need anyone. Like, you were born knowing how to survive." I didn't say anything right away. I didn't trust myself to. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think that's how Mom and Dad saw you too. Like you were already complete. So they focused on the one they thought needed fixing." I stared at the graph I'd been sketching on her notebook. My pen froze. She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't completely right either. Because the truth is, I had needed things. Love, approval, maybe just someone to notice I was drowning in silence. I just learned early that asking never worked. "I thought I had to be perfect to be loved," Olivia said, breaking the silence again. "And when I couldn't keep that up, I started falling apart, but you never cracked." That made me laugh. A short, dry laugh. If only she knew how often I'd shattered. "I cracked," I said finally. "You just weren't looking." We didn't hug. We weren't there yet. But that night was the first time we spoke to each other without the weight of competition pressing down on every word. We talked about things we hadn't touched since childhood, how we used to build blanket forts in the living room, how we both secretly hated green bean casserole but never said it out loud. For the first time in years, we weren't roles. We were sisters. But even as the walls between us started to come down, others stayed firmly in place. Our parents still called Olivia every other day. They still sent her money for groceries, still asked her about grades they never asked me about. When they called me, on the rare occasions they did, it was a quick check-in, more obligation than care. I didn't fight it anymore. I didn't want their validation like I used to, but I hadn't forgotten. Not really. Senior year arrived like a lightning bolt, fast, loud, and full of storm clouds. Between final projects and interviews, I barely slept. But it was worth it. My aerospace startup concept, something I developed through my internship, was officially gaining traction. A local investor offered seed money to help launch it into a real product, real-world application, real change. Then I got an email that made my hands tremble. I had been nominated as the lead speaker for the engineering graduation ceremony. Me. The girl who once fixed her own calculator because she couldn't afford a new one, the invisible daughter. When I told Olivia, she screamed so loudly she startled a guy 3 tables over at the cafe. "You're doing it," she said, eyes wide with something that looked like awe. "You're actually doing it." "I guess I am," I said, still unsure it was real. But as my future began to take shape, hers still looked like static. Olivia had passed her classes, barely. But she didn't know what came next. Her resume was light, her confidence fragile. She was applying to graduate programs, internships, even a few backup retail jobs. "I feel like I missed the boat," she admitted one day. "Like I spent so long pretending everything was fine that now I don't know how to build anything real." I wanted to fix it. Part of me did, but I knew I couldn't. "You just have to start," I said. "Start from where you are, not where you think you should have been." She nodded, and for once, she didn't argue. A few weeks before graduation, the plot twist hit. It was a Sunday morning. I was halfway through revising my speech when Olivia knocked on my door, holding her phone like it was on fire. "They want to talk to us," she said. "Who?" "Mom and Dad." I froze. My stomach dropped. "Why?" She held the phone up. "They saw the announcement. About your speech, the startup. They want to come to graduation." That should have meant something. It should have felt good. It didn't. "I don't need them there," I said, voice low. "I know," she replied. "But maybe I do." There it was, honesty, raw and real. "I'm not asking you to forgive them," she added. "I just want us both to walk across that stage without pretending anymore." Graduation day was surreal. I wore my cap and gown like armor. The stadium was packed. My name was printed in the program with valedictory speaker beside it. I spotted Olivia in the crowd first, hair curled, eyes proud. Then I saw them, our parents, sitting stiff in their seats, unsure how to belong in a world I'd built without them. My speech wasn't flashy. It wasn't about revenge or glory. It was about resilience. I talked about invisible effort, about how success doesn't always come from being seen, but from choosing to keep going when no one is watching. I didn't say their names. I didn't have to. After the ceremony, they approached. My dad offered a hesitant, "We're proud of you." My mom blinked back tears. I nodded. I didn't say much. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't a performance. It was a choice, quiet, difficult, and mine to make on my own time. But Olivia hugged me, tight. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I thought. "We did." 3 weeks before graduation, I got a letter that split my world open. It came in a plain envelope, no return address, just my name written in shaky cursive. I almost tossed it aside, thinking it was some random congratulations note or maybe a belated scholarship rejection. But something about the handwriting stopped me. Inside was a single page. It was from Mr. Mendez, a family friend, someone I vaguely remembered from childhood barbecues and holiday parties. He used to work at the local bank, and I hadn't heard his name in years. "I'm retiring soon," the letter began. "And before I go, I want to clear my conscience." I read the rest in stunned silence. He told me that my parents didn't struggle financially the way they always claimed, that the year Olivia and I got accepted into Ashwood University, they withdrew $100,000 from a long-term account, money that had been saved for college expenses. But it wasn't used for tuition. It was funneled into a startup idea Olivia had, a boutique clothing line she never talked about much. I only knew it had quietly fizzled out sometime last year. I thought it had been a class project or a hobby. It hadn't been. It had been a real business with real money behind it. My money. The air left my lungs. I sat back in my chair, the paper trembling in my hand. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the silence, the deliberate way they'd watched me struggle through school, skipping meals, working long nights, patching together aid packages and secondhand books, while knowing they could have helped. They just chose not to. I didn't tell Olivia right away. I needed to be sure. I went home that weekend, first time in months. I didn't make small talk. I handed my mom the letter. She read it once, then again, slower. Her face stayed still, unreadable. Finally, she said it, softly, as if it would hurt less that way. "We thought she needed it more. And we didn't think you'd make it this far anyway." That second sentence hit harder than any slap could have. They didn't think I'd make it. I had clawed my way to the top of one of the hardest engineering programs in the country, landed a startup deal, and written the valedictory speech. And still, they thought I was the backup plan. And Olivia? She stood in the corner, pale, confused. You knew? She asked them. My mother hesitated. Not exactly. What does that mean? Olivia demanded. They didn't answer, because the truth was obvious. They had kept it from her too. Not out of protection, but control. They wanted to help her succeed, yes, but they also wanted to preserve the illusion that I didn't matter as much. Olivia looked at me, horror blooming behind her eyes. Sam, I swear, I didn't know. I never would have taken that money if I knew. I believe you, I said. And I meant it, because I could see it in her. She wasn't lying. She was just another pawn in their game, played differently than I was, but played all the same. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I packed the letter back into its envelope and left. No dramatic exit, no storming out, just quiet clarity. They didn't deserve a reaction. They'd already stolen too much of my energy, my anger, my time. What they never expected, what they never understood, was that I didn't need their belief to become who I am. I built myself without it, but now I wasn't building just to prove them wrong. I was building to leave them behind. The next few weeks blurred together, finishing final presentations, practicing my speech, wrapping up my internship paperwork. Olivia kept her distance, but not out of avoidance, out of guilt. She checked in gently, brought me coffee once, even tried to bring up the letter again. I don't know how to fix it, she said. You can't, I replied. It's not yours to fix. She nodded. I still want to be here for you, if you'll let me. And maybe I would, eventually, because even though trust had shattered, something else had taken root, a kind of truth we'd never had growing up. No more pretending, no more competing, just honesty. Maybe that was enough for now. Graduation came like the final scene in a movie I'd rewritten myself into. I walked across the stage in my cap and gown, the crowd a blur behind the blinding stage lights. I gave my speech, confident, clear, unapologetically mine. I didn't mention my family, but I did mention resilience. And I said this: sometimes the people who are supposed to lift you up are the very ones who try to anchor you down. But strength isn't always about pushing back. Sometimes it's about walking away and never looking back. At the graduation ceremony, the sun hung high over the quad like a spotlight, casting golden light on rows of black gowns and proud faces. I stood backstage, my palms cold despite the summer heat, the edge of my speech card trembling slightly in my hand. The name Samantha Carter echoed through the loudspeakers as I stepped onto the stage. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't invisible. I was exactly where I was meant to be. I took a breath, looked out at the sea of students and families. Somewhere in the crowd, I spotted Olivia, front row, beaming, proud. And behind her, our parents, stiff and silent. I didn't linger on them. Not anymore. Then I spoke. I was told I didn't need support because I was strong, I began, my voice steady. But no one should be forced to become strong through neglect. You could have heard a pin drop. I didn't say names. I didn't need to. The words hit like quiet thunder. I spoke about perseverance, about building from the ground up, about how easy it is for people to write you off when they think you don't need help, especially when you're the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who doesn't cry when things fall apart. I spoke about dignity, about grit, about rising anyway. When I finished, the applause was slow at first, then swelling. A standing ovation. But the day wasn't done. As I stepped down, the university president returned to the podium, smiling wide. Before we conclude, he said, I want to recognize an exceptional student, not just for her academic performance, but for the story behind it. I froze. He looked directly at me. This year's valedictorian is Samantha Carter. The crowd erupted. My breath caught in my throat. She self-funded her degree, he continued, his voice booming through the speakers. She worked 3 jobs, excelled in one of the most demanding programs on this campus, and built an aerospace startup now valued at over 6 figures, all with no financial support from her family. That line landed like a grenade. No one applauded louder than the students. Professors were nodding. Even the tech investor I'd met the night before was standing, clapping, his eyes fixed on me with a mix of admiration and something else. Opportunity. But my parents? They sat frozen, stone-faced, like statues in the wrong museum. And Olivia? She was crying. That night, everything changed. My inbox exploded. The student newspaper had published a feature on my startup, and my speech had gone viral across campus networks. I was getting interview requests, meeting offers, grant inquiries. The investor I met earlier that day officially emailed me a proposal. He wanted to fund my company. My story had finally been seen, heard, respected. But before I could celebrate, there was one more moment I needed to face. Back at my apartment, Olivia showed up at the door, still in her dress, makeup smudged from tears. She didn't say a word at first, just walked in, sat on the couch, and stared at the floor. "I didn't know," she said finally. "About the money. They told me it was a loan from Dad's pension. I didn't know it was meant for both of us. Or that they lied to you." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." She wasn't asking for a free pass. She wasn't begging to be forgiven. She was just broken, honest. I sat next to her. "I know," I said quietly. "I believe you." She looked at me, hopeful, unsure. "I forgive you," I said. "But this doesn't go away overnight. I need time and space from them." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "You're not cutting them off?" I shook my head. "I'm not burning the bridge, but I'm not crossing it just because they suddenly want to act like they were behind me the whole time." Later that week, I called my parents, not to scream, just to make something clear. "You didn't just doubt me," I said. "You bet against me." There was silence on the line. I didn't wait for a reply. I was done needing one. In the weeks that followed, the startup moved forward. We secured our first round of funding. My name started circulating in spaces I never imagined: STEM conferences, innovation panels, women in tech events. But more importantly, I felt free. Not from the struggle, that part would always be a part of my story, but from the weight of waiting for people to value me who never would. I had spent years trying to earn something that should have been given freely: trust, belief, love. Now I gave those things to myself. And Olivia? She started to build too, not to catch up with me, but to finally build her own path, without our parents pulling the strings. We weren't best friends overnight, but we were real with each other, and that was more than enough. One year after walking across that graduation stage, I stood at the edge of a rooftop in downtown Chicago, watching one of my drones rise into the air like it belonged there. It was the first public demo of our modular drone system, lightweight, customizable, and designed for emergency response teams. It could scan collapsed buildings, deliver supplies in minutes, and link into real-time communications. The media was there, investors, a fire chief, a group of high school girls from a STEM outreach program we'd started last fall. My company, my design, my team. I had made it, not with shortcuts, not with family backing, with grit, with sleepless nights, with everything no one saw but should have. A month later, we launched. Orders came in fast, from first responders, NGOs, even international rescue units. My name started showing up in headlines. From overlooked to industry leader. I smiled when I saw that one, not because of the recognition, but because they finally got the story right. But even more meaningful than the tech, more than the revenue, was something quieter. Something I had built in memory of the only adult who had ever looked me in the eye and said, "You are meant for more." I named the company's first scholarship after her, the Irene Carter Fund, in honor of my grandmother. She was the only one who never underestimated me. When I was 10, she gave me her old mechanical clock and told me to take it apart and figure out how it worked. That little project lit the first spark. She saw it in me when no one else cared to look. Now, that scholarship supports young engineers from underfunded schools. Kids like me who are told to be realistic instead of ambitious. I read every application myself because I know what it's like to be unseen. By then, I had also accepted a consulting role with one of the most prestigious firms in the city. Not for the title or the paycheck, but for the influence. It let me shape how tech startups were evaluated, funded, and guided. I had a seat at the table, and I wasn't afraid to use it. But despite everything, the wins, the press, the growing team, I knew there was still one chapter unfinished. My parents had reached out a few times since graduation. Polite, awkward texts, a forwarded article with no message, a birthday card that arrived 3 weeks late, and then one day, an email. "We'd like to talk, in person, if you're open to it." I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I did. Eventually, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe near the lake, neutral ground. I arrived early, ordered black coffee, and sat by the window. They came in together, my mother in a pale blouse, my father in his usual sports coat, suddenly looking older than I remembered. There was a long silence before anyone spoke. My mother was the first to try. "We've been watching your work, the company, the interviews. We're proud of you." I nodded, not out of gratitude, out of acknowledgement. Then came the words I never expected to hear. "We were wrong," my father said, "about everything. We thought we were doing what was best for Olivia, for the family. But we see now that we failed you." I waited. I listened. There was remorse, not just guilt, but real regret. And for a moment, I let myself believe they meant it. But forgiveness doesn't erase memory. When I finally spoke, I said it slowly, clearly, so there could be no confusion. "You didn't just doubt me, you bet against me." They flinched, as they should have. "I'm not here because I need your apology," I continued. "I'm here so you can see the woman you underestimated, the woman you thought wouldn't make it, and the woman you can never control." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I had done both of those already, in years past, when I was still waiting for them to change. Now I wasn't waiting. I was living. I left before they could respond. Not out of pettiness, but peace, because closure doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like walking away, finally free of the need to prove anything to anyone who refused to believe in you from the start. 2 weeks later, I took a real vacation for the first time in years. Olivia came with me. So did my grandmother. We rented a quiet cabin near the ocean, where the stars looked like they were close enough to touch. We played cards, made bonfires, and watched sunrises wrapped in old quilts. Olivia and I laughed the way we used to as kids before everything got complicated. And my grandmother? She just smiled, watching us like she always had, like she already knew where I was headed, even back then. And maybe she did. Now, when people ask me how I got here, how I built it, how I survived it, I don't give them a sob story or a bullet list of achievements. I tell them this: you don't need permission to become who you're meant to be. You don't need applause to have value. What you need is proof. Proof through action, not permission. I was overlooked, underestimated, dismissed, and I built a future anyway. That's what strength really is. And if you're watching this, wondering if you can rise from whatever shadow they've put you in, hear this. You don't need to be chosen. Choose yourself and build everything.